it is a pretty serious bar to set for yourself that you are the man for the time. But the president's national security advisor, John Kirby, said, quote, he will take full advantage of the opportunity to talk about the moment we are living in, of democracies working together on behalf of their peoples, but also the importance of American leadership. I've been in Washington for an awfully long time, but I have no earthly idea what that quote means. 80 years is a long time since the D-Day invasion. Few of the men who stormed the beaches are alive today, but many were alive 40 years ago. June 6, 1984. Ronald Reagan at the time faced a tough re-election fight. He faced an arms race with the Russians, who had invaded Afghanistan. He faced multiple crises and conflicts around the world, and Iran itching to make its mark, having killed Americans. And then 40 years ago, 40 years after D-Day, he arrived at Pointe du Hoc.
Here in this place, where the West held together, let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Let our actions say to them the words for which Matthew Ridgway listened: I will not fail thee nor forsake thee.
Nobody had to wonder what Reagan meant. The world knew, and more importantly, the world believed him. Tomorrow is just a few hours away. Tomorrow morning is just a few hours away in Paris. Tomorrow won't be about if President Biden can actually say the words of his speech. Sadly, that is in question. But to be fair, there are moments he has rallied. He did it in Poland when talking about Vladimir Putin a couple of years ago. The question in just a few hours is whether the world will believe his words, not just for the sake of his presidency, but for the sake of freedom. Start tonight with Geraldo Rivera, NewsNation contributor at large, Peabody Award-winning journalist. Geraldo, good to see you. Did I set the stakes too high?
Thank you, Leland. You too. Well, I guess maybe. I think it was really poetry, and I enjoyed your commentary immensely. Now, did you set the stakes too high in making the premise that Biden is trying to compare himself to Roosevelt and these times to those times? I think so. I mean, having visited the D-Day beaches and the museum and being so deeply touched and meeting many of the older gentlemen who served in the greatest generation and being deeply moved by their sacrifice and seeing where the parachutists were hung up and the Nazis killed them and the hedgerows and so forth. That was a time where really democracy hung by a thread, and in the balance and all the rest of it. Those times aren't these times. You know, the world is not at war. I think the comparison President Biden is striving for here, Leland, and I think you know as well as I do, is to make sure that the United States doesn't falter in giving aid to Ukraine in its existential fight against Russia.
Geraldo, you said the magic word of democracy, and the word democracy is important because what you said about President Biden will talk about fighting for democracy. He's the one who makes the references that democracy is under threat. People are a threat to democracy, as was Adolf Hitler, as was Mussolini, as is, and I think we can all agree, Vladimir Putin. But at the State of the Union, he said democracy is at risk abroad, referring to Vladimir Putin, and at home, effectively comparing Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and putting them on the same level. Will he be able to resist that urge for political points tomorrow?
I think he's talking more about Putin and Xi and the other autocrats in Central Europe and elsewhere. I don't think that he was referring to President Trump. I think that some things you can't politicize. I have the quote right here. He said, I have the quote right here. He talked about at the State of the Union, democracy is at threat abroad and here at home, referring to Donald Trump. I didn't hear it that way, and I refuse to believe that that the president would go so blatantly making a comparison between Hitler and Trump. That's not the dialogue. I don't believe that anybody gets that message. I don't think that anybody takes away from President Biden's remarks. As clumsy as he may be, as bad as he is in reading the teleprompter, as stumbling as he may be for whatever frailty the Wall Street Journal and others are pointing out, he's not that, that dumb that he's going to make that comparison. Not in his heart of hearts. Anyway, politics is politics. This is a war where we had to rid, many occupied countries of the fascist beasts who were incinerating hundreds of thousands, millions of innocent people in the ovens of Auschwitz and elsewhere. That was the fight of our I was alive then. Biden was alive. I mean, we were babies, but we were alive in World War II. It's hard to believe. Probably the only one listening to the sound of my voice that was similar.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.